program. And let's switch for the moment to speaker view, especially you Aziz, so the recording is on speaker view. And if you know how to highlight in the screen the three people of the interview, that would be nice if the faces of the three of us are together. If not, it's okay. Okay, I'm going to ask Noor to start us with the invocation, and then I'll introduce the program.
Thank you. Well, please join in English or whatever language you like to say it in. Toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the only being united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the spirit of guidance.
Thank you very much. So welcome, family, to this set of interviews in which we're going to be average every 2 months. We're going to get together with senior mentors from around the world. Of course, we cannot cover them all, but we will be getting together with senior mentors that have been training leaders pretty much for their entire life. And they're going to be sharing with us, with the family, with the community, some important aspects of this job of training leaders. So this is very important resource for those of you who have mentees, very important resource for the mentors. And the whole series will be put in our website of the Dances of Peace. Thank you, Aziz, our Dance Network Director, for doing all the technical support for this thing to be happening. And the structure of this program of interviews is that every program, we're going to have one person from the board of directors of dup International. In this case, it is me as doing the interviews. Next programs, you were gonna meet other members of the board of directors. So this is also good for the family, for the community to meet who is the board of directors of our network. Then we're gonna have a member of the guidance council, that is like the board that has like the spiritual overseeing of the dance network. And also very good for our family to get to know who is this guidance council, who is the people who is sitting in the guidance council. In this occasion is Halima Sosman, who I will introduce in a moment. And the third person in each program is going to be a senior mentor from around the world. Again, we apologize upfront for not including all those seniors mentors that are important, but we're gonna try to highlight different regions of the world and different mentors who we want to acknowledge also the work they've been doing for their entire life. So pretty much that's it. And we're gonna do rounds of questions. I'll be asking some questions to our guests, and hopefully we can take some questions from the participants at the end. There's going to be a couple of moments to sing a song together, to not stay only in the conversational, rational mind. Oh, good, Aziz, you did it.
Thank you to Noor, Anna.
And then we're gonna close. We hope to have 1 hour and a half total. Hey, bravo, very good. So yeah, that is how we're going to proceed. So before introducing Halima, which is our guidance council member, I want to invite a friend to introduce Noor. So Rahmana from Germany, please say hello to your old friend. and tell us who Noor is, just in 1 minute.
Hi, my dear Noor. I miss having you in my garden. And I feel really honored to visit you now in your living room in this special occasion. I would like to say I'm really grateful for your presence in my life, and you have been the key figure in the European history of the dances. So when we meet you, we meet our history from the very moment on. And for me personally, it was so important to have you as my role model, stepping into my womanhood and into my dance leadership. And it was so precious and still is for me that you were the one who was helping me and so many others in Europe, especially in Holland and in Germany, to start dancing. So my deep gratitude, and I'm really happy that we will honor you today. And I love you and I miss you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Rahmana. And
Thank you.
also, it is my pleasure to introduce Halima Sosman, and she lives in Massachusetts, United States. And she met Murshid Sam in person. She's one of those lucky people that got the transmission directly from Murshid Sam eyes. And of course, that means she's been leading dances since that time. So more than 50 years in this path, more than 50 years also spreading the dances. And Halima and Abraham, both Murshids of our Rouhaniyat family, they've been running a dance leader training in Royalston, where they have a center. Many generations of leaders and many different teachers have passed through this training. So yeah, they've really been doing this for years, and it's an honor to have you here also, Halima, and of course, as a member of the Guidance Council, this important work that you all this council do for us. So let's just start listening from our dear guests here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your personal history in this path?
So I think I'm slated to begin and with this. So first of all, thank you for the invitation to share, and I'm honored to be with you all here. As you can tell from my long history with the dances, this is a precious part of my life, and it has been the kind of guiding light of my spiritual practice. I met Murshid Sam in 1969, 1970 was, the last years of his life, and had the great good fortune to show up at one of his dance classes, Wednesday night class every week, which was open to the public. It was not one of his really concentrated dance classes. It was a Sangha gathering. And he didn't give a lot of instruction. It wasn't, but we did lots of practice together. And so the dances kind of lit up my world. And it was really through this kind of transmission of light and joy and, it kind of lit up my circuits. And in some ways, like a seed, I feel like I've spent the next 50 years letting that seed blossom in me and continuing to blossom. So after, Murshid Sam died, I left the Bay Area and returned to Boston, where he had traveled twice and planted the dances in the Boston area on the East Coast. And that dance was also very dynamic, and that's where I became a leader, partly because there was no leader training. It just was like what ripened. And so I stepped up to a call of the need of the community. And so that's really the kind of foundation of my experience. I feel like I have been really blessed. This path has lit up my life, and still lighting it up, still unfolding, still new, still a practice. I think that's enough for this part. Yeah, I passed.
Can I ask you how old, if you remember, how old were you when you led your first dance?
I was 19.
19 years old.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. What about you, Noor? How did you started with the dances?
Well, indeed, I am from New York City, not California. And after my study, I traveled to India and I came back in 1970 to New York City, where I met many spiritual teachers, including Pir Vilayat, the son of Inayat Khan. And also Samuel Lewis was there in the autumn. And there I met him, very interesting character, I would say. And interesting there, we danced also in Central Park. I don't know if you know New York City, but that's a big park. And after he left us with the dances, we often danced in Central Park, and we also danced in Washington Square Park, which is, you just go on the street with a group of crazy dancers inspired by the blessings of this way, and just start dancing, drumming and singing, and people would join in always. So I met the dancers also in 1970. And in reality, began leading them in almost rather immediately in 71, as there was no training there. You just did it together with Shahabuddin in New York City. We would lead the dances, on a regular basis. And so that's my initial introduction. And I was initiated also that year in 71. And in 72, when I was in Europe with Pir Vilayat, he asked if I would bring the dancers to Amsterdam in the meditation center called the Cosmos. And I did with my friend Yaksan Valdez. And that seed was planted, let's say, in Europe, where I did lead them in Europe, but also in Amsterdam. So when I returned in 72 to Europe after the summer camp of Pir Vilayat in Chamonix, I gave the dances on a weekly basis. And there I met Akbar, who immediately became my drummer. and we would lead the dances on a weekly basis. And from there out, spread through Europe, through the different countries. Yeah, so that's my sort of initial, just moved, touched, inspired, and feeling the presence of, Samuel Lewis and the transmission that he also gave to me and to many of us. So.
Can we put it on the screen, Aziz, the pictures of that time that Noor sent us?
Let's see. There are two pictures. One is dancing in.
There they are.
Yes, myself, and behind me is Shahabuddin. Some of you know him, Shahabuddin Les. That's on Far Rockaway. Out there, it's the Sufi Day, Far Rockaway, and there you know that's, you see the ecstasy. The sun is shining, but we're shining just as the sun is also shining. That's myself there with the mandala. Kept the chain around my neck. And there's another photo of Chamonix.
52 years ago. What about that?
Yeah.
Can we see the next one?
Can you see it?
The next one is dancing in Chamonix, where in the summer camps we always dance with Pir Vilayat.
You have to close the first one, Aziz. Just close it.
Mhm.
Because we're still seeing the first one.
Can you see it now?
No.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
One more try.
Share screen.
Well, here it comes. There you go.
There we have. In the middle, you see Pir Vilayat there, and this is yeah, one of the many dance sessions just in the wild with the glaciers, 5 glaciers one could see from this side here. And
Huh.
a very,
Do you know what year that was, Noor?
it's maybe 73 or 2. Let me see, 70, it could be 73. Could be 73. Yeah. I can see some people, Blanche Fleur from Edinburgh. I don't know if that's from the Garden of Allah. Azim, Nazima, the stairs. Yeah, there are some people you have to really focus in and you can probably find them. But that was
Okay.
in.
That's very good. Thank you, Aziz, for the picture. So funny enough, I was also 19 years old when I met the dances like Halima. Well, Halima started leading at 19, and like Noor, very soon I started to lead because there was no teachers in our place. And the teacher from which we learned told us all the wrong melodies and the wrong movements from like 10 dances. And we practiced with those 10 dances for almost 2 years with a small group of people. Wrong melodies, wrong movements, and they still work. And we fell deeply in love with the practice. And then finally, a trained mentor came to us and say, "Oh my God, what you guys doing? This is totally wrong." But the fire was already inside. Let me ask you a question now. What do you think, Halima, is the jewel that the dances, the most important jewel that the dances have for the people? Why do people love them so much? What is the medicine that they bring to this world?
Oh, let's see. The dances are transformative. They connect us with each other. They, they open. To do them, and we come into our interconnected nature, which feels like so critical at this particular time, maybe every time. It's not a solo. In some ways it's solo because we're each of us opening up, but we open up in a field of interconnection. So that feels like just a tremendous blessing. And we're also invoking, sacred phrases from around the world that with the direct experience that it activates the same place inside of us. So we find this kind of unity of spiritual realization embedded in the dances. And, we say toward the one. It's that kind of toward that place of opening and find, it's every spiritual path has its own unique nature, but there's some common denominator that we find in our own hearts. And so I feel like that is, a huge gift that the dances brings, a huge medicine. And, I also feel like Murshid Sam said, we were dancing in fairly small circles at that time, but he had the vision that they would go around the world. And they are going around the world. And it may look like we are active in bringing them to different places, but I believe it's because it's ripe, that we're drawn. There's a ripeness in the atmosphere for this interconnected nature to be activated, to be realized, to be cherished, to be celebrated. And it's embedded in the dances that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes when I'm doing this thing of teaching in new places, I feel I'm being used, not like I'm doing something, but I'm just being used, like in the same way you use a hammer or a fork, or you're just being used by something else that wants to open, and it is opening. What about you, Noor? How do you put in words the medicine of the dances?
Well, I find the medicine the form is simple. It invites people. So you have people coming in a circle, some people some people you don't know, and then you join hands and then you sing a song together. So we breathe together, and then we make a simple movement. So in our breathing, we also move together, and there comes this attunement to the mantra or the words. So we have not only our breath is together, our physical movement is together, but also our focus. We want to focus on the mantra that we're singing, you know, the jewel in your heart, for example, or whatever the mantra would be. And that quality is very beautiful. And then, of course, anyway, I always try to attune to the time of year. Now, the solstice, when you have the dark, we are coming out of the dark and we're entering the light, you know, the moment of the year, to attune to that and bring that also into the dances and into the awareness of our family that we make for that session or day or weekend. It's magic. And the chants, you know, they start rolling and it stays within the spirit of the people. I always hear, yeah, I just have this mantra, it keeps going and going. And alhamdulillah, that's the blessing in the simplicity of what we're doing. It's a deep message, but we're not giving it, you know, a lecture or philosophically. It's, you know, with the body awareness and the breath. So that's the jewel.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I usually feel that the dances of peace are like a fruit, a byproduct of the planet evolution itself. That's why they appear now and not 1 century ago or 2 centuries ago, but now that humanity is moving into this global family status, like this stage of planetary consciousness. So the dances are like totally embedded with that. And also I feel that they have such a strong medicine in these times of isolation, because this modern society, it's a bunch of isolated individuals competing among themselves. You know, competition has become the value, like in the economy, you have to compete. So in the dances, all of a sudden, you're not isolated, and you come together and you're not competing, you're collaborating. And we humans, we really love to collaborate because we belong to the type of mammals that enjoy collaboration. So I think that's also how why we just love them so much. Let's keep with the questions. Halima, you've been training leaders for generations of leaders. You've seen people come knowing nothing, and then you see them like being one of the most important dance leaders in the whole community. Maitreya, for example, I bet you saw him all the way growing. So when training leaders, when thinking about training leaders and thinking of the mentors who are going to be watching this and thinking in training their own mentees, what is the fundamental things that you consider in this path of passing the transmission to a leader? How do you train leaders? What is important?
Well, it's a good question. It's a little bit of a mystery, you know, because you can't control another person's inner process, but we can, you know, nurture each other. The elements of mastery was dreamed up in my house when we were rewriting guidelines for leaders. And, you know, so I feel like what's in some ways when someone starts to lead dances, they're committing to a path of personal growth and cultivating you know, all these things that are embedded in the dance, like breath and rhythm and emptiness, emptying of oneself so that you can channel something, attunement, sound, mantra, you know, groundedness, being aware of embodiment. All of these things are elements that feel really important to be able to transmit. And as a mentor, I think we want to encourage people to deepen in the practice of the dance. You know, we want to encourage experiential practice. And, you know, I also feel like as a, you know, Murshid Sam, he said, being a teacher is like being a part of a battery, that you have an active pole and a receptive pole. And by themselves, nothing's happening. But when they connect, something happens. And so there's also this kind of support and connection that we want to have with our students, where the connection it helps everybody grows, everybody benefits. You know, the mentor is not just passing on information, but an active part of receiving what a student is bringing to the table. And so there's you know, I think needs to be a basic sense of trust and support that allows transmission from one to the other. You have to be able to receive, and at the same time, you know, it's not it's a living process. So it's not about information, it's about support.
Do you sometimes tell to your mentees, oh, I think for your development, you should start working with this tradition, or maybe why don't you learn this dance? Or what type of direct advice you give to your mentees?
I might suggest to start with something that's close to home, you know, and, you know, cultivate something that is already. I will often suggest that someone take a certain mantra and take it on for 40 days, you know, and sing it and move with it and just embrace what the mantra opens up, as well as kind of understanding how the body prayer to a particular dance might go in that mantra. So what are we doing when we're sweeping the heart, or what are we doing when we're stepping back, or, you know, what's happening in our invocation as we move ourselves. So those are the kinds of things I might support a mentor to do with their students, and what I've done to support you know, my mentees. I feel like for most people, you are an experienced dancer before you become a mentor. You know that this practice is really in your body. It's not always that way. I mean, you mentioned Maitreya. It wasn't really that way for him, although he probably had danced a bunch, but he had this pouring through him. So then it's also important to recognize people who are ripe, you know, just from life. And you know, so there are, I think, templates out there for cultivating experience and deepening. And I think as a mentor, we want to learn to be flexible. And we also learn from our students. I have to say I've learned as much from the people who I mentor as they might have learned from me. And yeah.
Absolutely. Let me ask you one just quick last question to you, Halima, before we change to Noor. I know every case is particular, and overgeneralization is a problem, because you just explained that sometimes a person is ripe because it is ripe. Maybe it's just beginning. But coming back to the general principles, how do you handle a typical situation in which a mentee that is not fully mature or fully developed, maybe it's just beginning, and maybe this mentee comes to you and saying like, oh, I have started creating new dances?
So yeah, I mean, I tend to suggest to people that they walk in a path that's already trod before they climb the mountain by themselves, you know, or reinvent, you know, that I don't know. It always surprises me that there are new dances and new melodies pouring through. I feel like the ones that seem to have the most depth come from having had an experience of dancing what's already been dance. And I also feel like it raises for me the issue of fana, the sense of effacement that there's effacement, emptying of self, so that you can, like, taking out all the little snarls, addressing the places where we're over-identified with ourself. You could say that's the work of the nafs, so that we can open up and be a channel to fulfill the purpose of our life, to fulfill the purpose that is going to support something unfolding in humanity. So in that way, I tend to not go for the creative impulse right off the bat,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, Noor, what about you? Years of training. I personally met some of your very early mentees in Europe, and now they are the main teachers in their country. So what is important after all years of learning?
Yes, yes. It's indeed, every person is unique. And so how you deal with that person is also unique. But to experience it, to learn and expose oneself as often as possible to dances is very important. And the training that we gave in Holland, because it's a small country, Akra and I developed a system of a 3-year training where not everyone wanted to be a chief or a leader, but people just came to experience the dances. And so you had a very strong body of about 30 people who carried the dances, and they made a commitment for 1 year. And then you had a 2nd year and a 3rd year, and you can always just join or leave. And so we always had a very strong support for everyone. And indeed, those who wish to become dance leaders, then of course, there's more work to be done. I find also the works of Inayat Khan, The Unity of Religious Ideals. I find it an important book because we study all the religions, we know the religions. It's almost like being a Shirag in the Inayati way. But the dances help us to embody that more. And I always say a dance leader or a mentee, any teacher is like an iceberg. It's not English, an iceberg. So, an iceberg is very deep in the water, but you only see that little bit, but one feels the big source of inspiration, having studied and done, and fana, as you say, to be in service, to try to, bring forward what is present. Of course, as a teacher, you try to see what is present in the person. Do they have to work on their rhythm? Do they have to work on their inner attunement? How are their nafs or their egos? It's always a unique challenge in what to bring forward in a person. So I think there's no one way of saying this is the way. And every teacher. So as a student, I know they're enthusiastic and they want to, are inspired. So, I mean, sometimes we just let them go and say, okay, see how that works. And then you see that the transmission is not really there. It's a mind attunement instead of a mind, heart, soul, body attunement. So yeah, when do you let the student learn and fall on their face, or when do you direct them a little more? So that's so unique. It's difficult to say this is the way. So anyway, but
And what do you think, Noor, about when a student, for example, doesn't have much experience in a tradition, but still we want a dance leader to have a repertoire that is broad. So let's say I really don't know anything about Zoroastrian tradition, or maybe the only thing I know about Om Mani Padme Hum is what I read on the manual, but I don't really have more experience of that. But I still want to lead that dance. So how we put in balance the having a wide repertoire with a deeper experience in some of those traditions?
Yeah. Now, we are fortunate to live in our Western world anyway. We can always expose ourselves to different traditions. And if you have a Hindu tradition, go and join a puja or go and join one of those people. And to see why they love Krishna, I mean, they are really in the bhakti, they are very devoted. Or why, go into the Jewish tradition, know from the Kabbalah how the mystical way sometimes can help knowing a tradition rather than the mindful way. So it's that is it. I know for me, I come from a Roman Catholic background, and I realized that I had difficulty sometimes attuning to the Jewish way. But then when I studied the Kabbalah and I approached the Jewish tradition from the mystical understanding, then that worked for me to open up the greater understanding of the Jewish tradition. So sometimes you can use a different path in order to enlighten a certain religious traditions. And again, in Ayat Khan, I always love his religion always are like a diamond, and he has a way of explaining in the unity of religious ideals another attunement from certain religions, and that can open us up for more understanding. It's of course learning with the mind, but it's also an inner attunement that one needs to be open and try to learn and grow and understand, and to do the chant, to try to understand it. So as Halima said, to do a Hindu chant for 40 days to try and understand that, or after Islam or something, whatever. So those are, it's a learning process. It's just, it doesn't snip like that, but it's a deepening, coming in.
Let me ask you one last short question before we go to the next segment, which is going to be some singing together. So we also come into the direct experience of what we're talking. What about, can you tell us in a nutshell, very briefly, like what is important to you when you think about certifying a dance leader? Like say, oh, this person is ready. What comes to your mind?
What comes to my mind is the inner attunement. I find that and their own inner realization, because that's, again, it's what you bring forward. If I'm talking about Abunda Vashimaya, if I have experienced that, then it's easier to bring something forward. And of course, it's good to have broadness, which is important, but it's also to have the depth. And that's, again, the inner learning and attunement that one needs to be open for. So, yeah.
And how would you answer that same question when thinking about a mentor? Like, how do you know when one of your students is ready to be a mentor and is gonna go on that direction?
You asked me that question. Well, with the people that I allow to become a mentor, I also look at their students, and I can see on how their students are in the world, the effect that their mentorship has, because I've already have given certain mentors. So I see how their students are in the world and how they lead the dances. And then I can see also their work in that aspect. So, yeah, I would say, yeah.
So I pass it on back to Massachusetts, where Abraham has arrived on the space also. And if Halima, if you want to make any comment about my last question of how do you spot a person that is ready to be a mentor or a certified leader, and then from there you can carry on with your practice.
I liked Noor's response. I second it. And also, I do feel like becoming a certified leader or a mentor is also just a deepening commitment to keep cultivating this path. It's not a goal. It's not the end goal. It's a marker of taking on a responsibility. So I just kind of, sometimes people go, okay, now I'm certified. Whoopee, here I go. And in a way, yes, but it's also commitment to keep deepening. And same with being a mentor. It's a walking with process that continues to work on our own inner world. Yeah.
And one other thing, one does become a certified teacher. Many of the feedback is say, "Oh, I'm just beginning. It's now the beginning of the path." And
Yeah.
Like an initiation. That's why we call it initiation.
That's right. And that we both have a lot of experience of years with this, Noor. Yeah. And yeah. Okay. Should we carry on with a song?
Yes, please invite
Okay.
us all.
Okay, so I'd like to invite you all to go to gallery view if you would. So we kind of connect with each other, see who's here. And we'll do Allahu Akbar, which is a chant which comes through Maitreya. And, at that time, he was not a terrifically active dance leader. He was at our house. We were doing recording. And he was just doodling around on the guitar, and my ears kind of went, ooh. As he was playing this chant. And within an hour, the whole dance came through me as I was learning this chant from him. So I think most of you know it, but we'll do this is my partner Abraham, who's also Murid of Murshid Sam, and we spent our first times together in the Chamonix camp the year before you were there, Noor. So yeah. Okay. So we'll do the melody, and I invite you to enter into the body prayer, kind of opening your breath, and we swoop with the heart and rise back, and then into the heart again, and then we empty ourselves, emptying, and we rise up strong together, connecting together, and then we open to Ya Salam, peace, filling up like a chalice, and then we come back to the beginning and we go Allahu Akbar, sweeping Allahu Akbar, emptying ourselves Allahu Akbar, feeling ourselves connected together, strong. Ya vessel of peace, salam into the heart. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. On the breath. Do it one more time. Salam, ya salam again. Ya salam. Ya salam. And then let's blow who into each other's hearts. Amin, 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 amin.
Thank you very much, Abraham and Halima. Such a sweet medicine. Let's see where we just planted this sweet medicine around the beautiful Gaia, planet Earth, Pachamama. So let's open the chat and please start with Asia and Oceania. If you are in Asia and Oceania, please say hello and the place and the country where you are connecting in this moment. Let's see where we just sent this blessing to that part of the world. Philippines, wow. Istanbul in Turkey. Anyone else from Asia and Oceania? I know you're there. Malaysia, Winnie from Malaysia, Fethiye in Turkey, Berna, Ahmed is in the Maldives, Bahar is in Iran, Prem and Amrita in Aotearoa, New Zealand, Jerusalem, Ruthie. Many friends working with the Beyond Initiative in that part of the world. Somehow this set of interviews is also part of the Beyond Initiative. Auroville, India. Hello, Jim. Nice to see you again. Because we're trying to see what else can we do together as a family. We're trying to unlock the powers that we have as this big network that we are. Tahir in Delhi, the guardian of the Dargah, neighbor to the Dargah of Inayat Khan. Hello, Tahir. Matthew is in France. Oh, okay, Matthew, we're not yet in Europe, but very soon. And Mehran in Tehran, Iran. Hello, Mehran. Glad you made it here. Okay, let's change to Europe. Please say hello. City and country. Ralph in England. Joel's in London. Bielefeld, Germany. Berlin. Padma in France. Milan in Italy. But Jabbar, usually in the States. We have Norway, Bremen, Germany, Spain, Portugal, Wales, Brittany, France, England, Belgium, Scotland, more England, UK, and Germany. Okay, let's see. Oh, more. Stella in Scotland, Nicola in Hamburg, Sarah in Scotland. Perfect. What about Latin America? Let's start to hear Latin American cities and countries. Let's see if we planted this Allahu Akbar in Latin America. Cachipay, Colombia, Viña del Mar, Chile. Bacalar in Mexico, Valparaíso in Chile, more Chile, Ikram, Villarrica. Okay, anyone else from Latin America? Azucena from Mexico. Okay, what about United States? Where about in the United States we just sent this blessing? To Spokane, to Cali, Colombia, to Sedona, to Michigan, to Washington, to Arizona, to Seattle, to Mendocino, to Atlanta, to Kansas, to Illinois, Ohio, Eugene, to Washington State, Honolulu, California. Wow, we just sent this prayer to so many places. An acupuncture for the planet.
Good medicine.
Great. Montana, New York, Sacramento, and many places. So let's restart with the conversation. Meanwhile, we keep looking at names and locations. Noor, from all these years doing this work, training leaders, can you share with us like a method that was very successful, like an example of something that was very successful? Could be a structure, could be a method, could be a way of working with the leaders, and also an example, if you have some, that was not very successful and maybe is not worth going that way because it might be a waste of time. So one successful tip for the mentors, that's something you found that works, and one that is maybe didn't work so good.
Well, I began earlier with our meeting to speak about the structure that we developed, and where we gave our training of 3 years with the idea that you don't need to make a commitment for 3 years and you make a commitment for 1 year. So we have 12 themes, which covers quite a lot. Also a theme of universal peace is one of the weekends we gave, or the indigenous people, we know that, or the mother, the female. So these are also included. And then because the course went on for, like, say, 20 years, we did it, there were always a good foundation. As you know, with tribes, a tribe is with chiefs and also Indians. So we always had in our group many different kinds of people, also the leaders. So we had in a year a safe group where people were secure. So, and then you did a tradition, Hindu tradition. So everybody received the dances, the teaching therein, which we prepared. But then let's say we also did a puja. What is it to have the feeling? In every tradition, we did something that was like a ritual so that the people could feel where we're talking about. Let's say for the goddess tradition, we had everybody make a clay figure of their own goddess, and we danced around that for the weekend. So things like that. And then within the study group, people could, of course, present a dance and share it that way. So, and then many people went on after the 3 years, they began the cycle again. So they did 4 years or 5 years or 6 years, or some people did 8 years. They just wanted to continue with people who were focused, whereas you have a workshop day, which is open for everybody, then everybody comes. But when the group is closed, so we found that for Holland, anyway, that system worked very well. So we as trainers had a 3-year course with 4 weekends and 12 themes. And when we finished our year, we began it again. So that meant that people could step in year 2, and then they would do year 2, 3, and 1. Or they would step in our 3rd year, and then they would do year 3, 1, and 2. So we found for the Dutch people that a working system that worked very well for us. Yeah, but that was unique, let's say, for Holland. And that because one of the things is that the base is there. If one begins every time a new group is new energy. You have to attune everybody, and you have to, have everybody come into attunement. But when you have a foundation, then the attunement is easily carried, because the foundation of the people help the new people who come in. So you don't always have to begin at 1. You can begin at 5 or 6, because they get carried. It's like you have the experience of the Our Father. When we began teaching that, I mean, it was a lot of work. Now I'm going to give next Saturday the Our Father. I'm just going to give a short teaching moment. And then in the afternoon, it's a day. Then in the afternoon, we do it because there's enough foundation. So also in the training, our training was done that way in Holland. Of course, outside of Holland, it's the other,
So let me just make like a super summary of that. So it really lands in our mentor. So basically you're saying you found that works very well when you design and organize long processes of training, like long-term trainings, and then you divide those long-term trainings into smaller segments that people find easier to commit, and it keeps rolling like a cycle, like a wheel. And then inside the trainings, you give space for deepening into the traditions, individual traditions, with not only dances, but direct experiences from those traditions. And what about something that didn't work? Because we're very good about telling nice stories, but it's from mistakes
I
that
know.
we really learn.
I tried to think of what didn't work. I couldn't find anything, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
I tried to think of something, but I couldn't find anything. I don't know.
Okay. No
I'm
compulsion.
sure there
to
is
find-
something
to
that
find
didn't
mistakes.
work, but I don't know. You have, of course, some people, but some people need to train their voice more or their rhythm more. That's something that, and I would advise all dance leaders to play the drum. Just all dance leaders learn to play the drum. Simple 3/4 rhythm, 4/4 rhythm, just simple. And it's easy to lead a dance as a dance leader from your drum and the rhythm, and you control the energy in that way. That is something, but it has to be in your system also. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. What about you, Halima? What do you have for us as a successful tool and something that maybe mentors should be careful about?
So I'll go to the second part of it first, which is that I found that there's a really big art to giving feedback to people, and that criticism is not good medicine.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is something I probably had to learn through my own experience. And I do feel like when people are cultivating leadership or mentorship, their hearts are vulnerable. People put their hearts into the space. And, so I think probably the biggest mistakes I've made have been to be critical of somebody's movement without really realizing how tender a space it is that people are holding when they are leading a dance or growing those parts of themselves.
Yeah.
So I feel like feedback, how we give feedback to people, is a really important element. And, I'm reminded of how Murshid Sam said, I don't celebrate people's faults. I celebrate their strengths. And so I feel like that's part of the art of supporting people to grow this, is to look at what their strengths are and to bring support to that. You know, over the many years that I've been working with the dances and that they have been working with me, there have been a lot of different ways we've done trainings. And the most recent iteration is that we've had a yearly dance deepening, which people come to, and it is open to dancers, dance leaders, mentors. And so it's a training for everybody at whatever level they are working on. And, you know, I have great gratitude for the people who are committed dancers without the desire to be leader, because, you know, who are we going to lead? You know, so it's really important to have people. They bring, you know, a huge amount to the circle. And, you know, and then there's already a big support for budding leaders, experienced leaders, and mentors. And so we tend to, one of the formats that we've used is to divide the group up into clusters of dance leaders with a mentor, and they have some time where they're leading a session and with the whole group. And that we've taken that form to Russia. We've taken that form, you know, quite successfully, and other parts of the world that we've traveled to. And it is the form that we're using now for our dance deepenings. And, you know, so it gives people a supportive atmosphere to step into. We do ask people to tend to lead a mantric practice that they know. You know, it's not a place to showcase new dances, although that sometimes I mean, you know, we have guidelines, but we don't have rules. So it's a living, you know, we're working with people. And I think that's the other side of it, is that, you know, when we're doing that, it becomes really apparent ways that the more experienced mentors can support by doing more walks, or, you know, to augment the practice. I have never divided the dances by religion. And, you know, it just hasn't been my way. It's not how I ever learned them. And, you know, I also feel like it's really not a great thing to lead a dance if you don't have a transmission and or a sensitivity, if you're not called to a certain practice or religion. And Murshid Sam did not lead dances where he didn't have a transmission in it. He happened to be an extremely practiced person, so he did, you know, lead, you know, dances from the Hindu world, and he didn't, not from the religion, but from the practice. You know, he invoked Om Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Ram, and because he knew about it. And you know, we had the practices of the Sufi, the Arabic dances, and they weren't necessarily connected to religion, but to practice. And so, you know, that is how I've kind of caught it and passed it on to people. You know, how does the universe practice? You know, I wanted to read this quote, and I'm going to do it because I can squeeze it in here. This is from Murshid Sam, and he says, "We are here to complete our humanity, not to avoid it. Therefore, we must hold before ourselves the idea of the holiness of humanity and the sacredness of the body. Institutions, themes, forms, and ideas are inferior to humanity, for humanity was created by God, and these things were made by humanity. As humanity grows in understanding, in consideration, and in compassion, spiritual art will unfold itself accordingly. humanity's heart awakening comes first. So that is a big part of what we're trying to create a container for in our dance trainings. You know, is that heart awakening through practice, through awakening, through mantra, through repetition, and through attunement. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. The method you were describing that you're using in your trainings and you're taking to Russia reminds me of what we do here in Atlantida in the big gatherings at Easter. We're going to start one in a couple of weeks. We have so many people wanting to train as dance leaders that it would be impossible for us to include them in the main session. We're talking about 30 people or 40 people wanting to. So we couldn't do that. So we created this format of the dance laboratories in which people lead their dances, the beginners, and in smaller circles. So at some point we subdivide ourselves in 3 different smaller circles, and simultaneously they're all operating. And in that way we managed to accommodate 40 dance leaders that are just beginning to still have the opportunity to have a safe circle. I'm gonna make a little change in the program here. I want to invite the participants that are still with us. We're moving we're very close to finishing this call. So I want to make sure that we have time for some questions. So if there's something that you like to hear the opinion of these 2 senior mentors about the path of training leaders, about the path of the dances, about something, a situation that you might even have with one of your mentees, could be a question that you don't know, you don't have any clue, or could be something that you've been chewing and you want to know their opinion. So we're gonna use the chat. So if you have questions, please take this moment to write them on the chat. Let's see if we have something there. And if not, we just move forward with the program. Questions? Please write them in the chat so we can have them there. Okay, we have one question from Thea. Oh, it's about translation. Yeah, I know it would be good to have translation, but organizing translation for 15 languages is quite a challenge. So yeah, I'm sorry, we don't have translation into your native languages. But this is gonna be put on YouTube. Maybe YouTube can create the subtitles in your language. Okay, we have a question. What is your experience with mentoring leaders in different countries when they are not in your place? Do you do it via Zoom? How you deal with that?
Well, I can respond. In my case, I have, there are leaders who've grown up to become mentors that I can pass the ball to in those countries. So, you know, I find that is the most effective way that I've found. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. And Noor, do you have something to say? How do you work with your students when they are far away?
Well, hopefully we meet, or we are with the telephone. And that way, I don't have Zoom meetings with them, not really, but just to, yeah. If they have questions, then they ask them, and then I give them advice about that. Yeah, that's about it in that sense. Yeah.
We have another question, very provocative question from my friend Maria Sayeni Kram from Chile, and she's asking, what is your dream with the dances? What is the when you dream about the dances of peace in the world, like what do you imagine? What's your destination in
World
terms of the
peace.
dances?
World peace. Really big vision.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like Anayat Khan invoked the image of a temple, of the universal temple. And I feel like the dances are a manifestation of that. And when we meet like this, like we're all over the world right now, and if each of us feel ourselves as a pillar, you know, as holding something in our hearts, and we connect, that is the universal temple. And, you know, so I feel like there's infinite possibility of positive energy from this.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
There's another question, very, very complicated question from Malika. She said, well, Murshid Sam told his students who had the skill to be a leader and who doesn't. How do you manage with that? How do you manage when you have a mentee, for example, that you know that maybe doesn't have the skills, could be rhythm or could be magnetism, or but still wants to be a dance leader? How do you manage this thing of empowerment versus skills of the people?
Yeah.
Well, you can go, Noor. I just spoke.
No, take the inspiration. You began.
Well, you know, as far as I know, Murshid Sam he only empowered a few people to be leaders, actually. And he empowered them to be themselves, but he didn't give them the station of leading and necessarily. So I don't quite know where that comes from, but I also feel like, you know, this has to do with softening the ego, and that we want people to, you know, empty themselves, to like soften the grasp, the hunger to be seen, so that we can be of service, real service, and not through the ego. And it's a very delicate dance, as we all know. You know,
Yeah.
I don't think there's a outer answer. I think sometimes, I know that Murshid Sam was very direct about this. He made, you know, when I came to Boston, he had made, you know, some people, you can lead the dance, you can lead the dance, you can lead the dance. And then one person who was a very magnetic leader, he did not give him permission to lead the dance, and he never did. And I didn't know until years later. I said, how come you never led? He was like, I didn't have permission. So I think sometimes we just, you know, have to really check in and see. It's not always easy to tell someone no when they want to go. And so, you know, hopefully we cultivate heart connection and more skillful means, you know.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's also to see where the ego is at that moment, and what wants to what is the true service that one is, what is the attunement, the adapt that we have as our channel coming forward. So it's very delicate to say no, as Halima said, but it does need to be directed in, hopefully in a positive way, to help this person unfold, so that their wish can be manifested, if it's to be. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's all sorts of stories, right? There's people that come to the dances, they cannot keep the rhythm. They really cannot keep the rhythm, but they commit that they want to train and learn. And maybe after 10 years, they managed to keep the rhythm, and it's been a transformational journey because they had to take lessons with private teachers or singing lessons, or so it's a beautiful journey. Okay, we're gonna do 2 more questions, and then we really move into the closing of the call. One question, I'm gonna read the 2 questions together, so we answer them together. Maybe one of you answer one and the other the other. One question is, I had a mentor in my country and in my place, but then I changed place, I'm living in a new place. Can I still have a connection with my mentor, but find like a second mentor that is close to me in person? And the other question is, what about a leader that's never played any instrument before? How can this person start to lead? Is it necessary to lead with the guitar, or could it be just a drum? Is it okay to lead a dance just using your voice? So we have those two questions.
Yeah, well, let's say the last question. In the early days, there were not so many musicians. I think many of the dancers were just led with the drum. Mershid Sam always said that the drum, the bass, the rhythm, the heart, that is essential. But all the other instruments that we have, we are having an orchestra of instruments. In reality, it's not necessary. And even if you just do a cappella with no instrument, that's also okay. So it's not a requirement. I don't play an instrument either. I do play the drum as dance leader. That's quite easy for me, but it's not necessary to play an instrument. And but the drum is essential. But even that's not. You can also just do it a cappella if you can keep the tone in the right way. So, you know, when one enters the dance today, they are, seeing all the musicians. But in the past, it was just the drum. I know in New York, we had always just the drum. That was it.
Yeah. Likewise with the person you mentioned, Jackson Valdez.
Yes.
He also brought the dances to Latin America for the first time, and it was just with the drum, and it worked, very successful. Yeah. Okay, Halima.
Okay, so I'll go to the other question. I think that would be a great conversation to have with your mentor.
Yeah.
And, I know if it was me, and I would want to keep that relationship if I could, and support them to have a more local mentor, or, someone who would support them. So I think that it's fine to get local support and help when you can have it, as well as maintaining our bigger heart connections. So that it doesn't, in real life, I don't think that kind of thing needs to be a conflict. It's more like how we communicate with each other and kind of hold each other.
Yeah.
So
I will just add to that you can have two mentors. Like in the international network, you can be registered with two networks. And also I will add that not every relationship you have to make it official and formal. I have many mentors who I learned from, and I didn't need to make it official every time I'm learning, entering into a new learning relationship. So we can have as many teachers as we want and still keep the original mentor as the one who gave us the hand for the first time. So many options around that. So let's do this. Let's hear now Noor guiding us on a practice to close this whole interviews with a practice of the heart. And then after the practice, after the singing practice, our two guests are gonna say one last thing, very juicy and very short, taking this opportunity of being heard by the entire troop of mentors of our family. One last thing you want to say to the mentors that have their mentees and they're doing this job, and that will be the closing. So Noor, please lead us in a practice.
Okay. Well, we were asked to do a song, a dance, and there are many, and on that because I'm busy now with the Aramaic words came to me of the high minute key, a height key. These are the words that are in the Bible. Jesus, he spoke them. And it's the story, it's about trusting and believing. Minutki, it's a word that is the same word in our language. You have the word of trusting and believing. And the story of this is that Jesus was on the mount preaching with his disciples, and one of the people, she was ill for many years and no one could help her. And she thought, Jesus, he is a healer. He can help me. Even if I just touch the end of his cloth, of his robe, that I know I can be healed. So she did that. She went behind and she just touched, the seam of his robe. And indeed, immediately the energy fell and she was healed. But Jesus, he felt it. And he said, hey, Peter, what's happened here? What's happening? And he said, I don't know, Master, what is it? And the woman saw that Jesus noticed this. So she approached him and she said, yes, Master, I've been ill for many years. No one can help me. But just in touching your robe, I have now been healed. And so, and Jesus said, my daughter, your belief has healed you, or your faith has made you whole. And I find this a very lovely aspect in the Aramaic word that we have from Sadi. And so this is a melody from Tansen, the English teacher. And it's, I hope that you know it. I don't have any instrument. I don't have my drum. I just have my table for the rhythm. And it's high minutki, a high key. And of course, it's a dance. So we can just do a sort of zikr movement to the left and to the right, just to open ourselves to trusting and believing, which is the same energy, trusting and believing in the life that is present within and around all of us. And especially this time of year, moving from the dark period into the light, the solstice. So the life, trusting in life within and without. Okay. This a cappella. Hi minutki, a heidki, hi minutki, a heidki, hi minutki, a heidki, hi minutki, a heidki. With movement. Hi minutki, a heidki, hi minutki. A heidki, hi minutki, 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 a heidki. Hi minutki, a heidki, 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 hi minutki. A heidki, hi minutki, 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 a heidki, Let us open a place within of trust and belief in our path and love for and with the dances. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we're closing this program today. We're gonna close with both of your last very short message to all the mentors out there doing this job of training leaders. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Noor and Halima, for your time and willingness to do this interview. Please stay tuned for the next interview, which is going to happen in 2 months. And we're going to have a new person of the board of directors, not going to be me, but Munira. A new person from the guidance council, not going to be Halima, but Sadi. And a new person from the senior mentors around the world, not going to be Noor, but FIBA from Latin America, representing the mentors of Latin America. So it's going to be, again, a beautiful conversation. And May 17, as is saying. So thank you very much. And last words, Halima.
I feel like let's lay ourselves in the hands of the lineage of the ancestors who've come before, that we're opening ourselves for guidance and support. And if we line ourselves up, we become representational of that baraka. And so I also am noticing this other question that didn't get answered, and about the walks. And this all started with walking practices as an embodiment practice, grew into the dances. And so, yeah, the walks are really important. So, yeah. May we walk our talk.
Yes. Okay. And indeed, so as Sister Halima said, it's knowing that we are in the caravan, that we live at this moment, but there's the caravan that is behind us, there's the caravan that's in front of us, and we are part of that lineage, which is a blessing. And in that blessing and our gratitude to just enjoy the fruits that have been the seeds, the many seeds, as Murshid Sam said about the flowers, seeds he planted 1 year, nothing happened. Planted that next year, nothing happened. And the third year he planted, and they came up. They came up for the first year, the second year, the third year, all of them. And he said, God, this is too much. How can this be? And God said, well, Sam, or we all just, harvest what you can and leave the rest to God. So with that joy in our heart and knowing that we are serving, it's a blessing and in gratitude. Thank you all. Thank us all. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Let's open all microphones and listen
also,
from all those
Yafata.
languages.
Alhamdulillah.
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 Bye now.